I always get a kick out of this because we talk about software-defined networking, software-defined storage, software-defined data center, and yet the part we have the hardest time with is the definition. And for me, when I was thinking about it, I realized that it's the parable of the blind men and the elephant. So you get the parable is the 6 blind men were trying to describe what an elephant was. And each of them had a different part. So the guy who grabbed the tail thought it was a rope. The guy who grabbed the trunk thought it was a tree. And it wasn't until a man who could see walked by and said, "You guys aren't grabbing a rope or a tree, you're grabbing an elephant." You have to look at the bigger picture. Software-defined data center is not a SAN. Software-defined data center is not a switch. It's not a CPU in a cluster somewhere. It's something bigger than that. John Hudson was actually telling me during one of the presentations, you guys don't need to know this. You guys are not the people we should be talking to. We should be talking to people who have C's in their name, C something O. Why? Because they're the ones that need to hear this. They're the ones that need to see the value of the software-defined data center. We need to transform data centers. And what you've heard from the sponsors today is that they're transforming data centers with their own applications by adding software. Some other companies will throw a whole pile of software at you and say, hey, you can build a data center out of this. Well, it doesn't do you any good. You have to know what you're wanting to build, but you also have to realize that going past that is the big picture. You have to provide value. You have to end the pets versus cattle argument. You have to say, well, yes, we can spin up your application, or we can start treating the users as multi-tenants like Facebook does. So the question earlier about, well, when does the SDDC become an issue for campus networks? That's when you can start isolating your users from each other, which is going to happen eventually. Otherwise, we're going to have more Edward Snowdens in the world. But remember that all of the parts of the data center are important. I always like to joke with Howard that he can tell me my network is useless until we want to move his data somewhere. But just like that, my network is useless without his data or something to crunch on it. So we have to remember that building a data center requires multiple different parts. But to my earlier comments about the definition of what SDDC is, or SD whatever, that comes from you guys. If you don't know, LOL is in the Webster's dictionary. Do you think the guys who write dictionaries wanted LOL in there? No, they didn't. You know why it's there? Because people defined what LOL means. And so that was why it had to be accepted. So for those people who are out there trying to market SDDC to you, or those VARs that are trying to sell you SDDC in a box because it has a SKU and a margin, push back. Tell them that you're not going to put up with it anymore. I went to this symposium. I heard what SDDC was. SDDC was not what you're trying to sell me. It's not a 12-year-old script that I used when I dialed into a network to automatically program something. It's something more. Don't accept the status quo. And if you can do that, and you can tell them what your definition of SDDC is, I can promise you at the end of the day, they're going to come crawling back to you, hat in hand, to say, all right, we agree with you. Now let's work together to build something better. Okay, I'm off my soapbox now. SDDC Symposium would not be possible without a lot of people working behind the scenes to make it successful. I want to thank our panelists and speakers, Andy Warfield from Coho Data, Chris Evans from Architecting IT, Chris Price from Open Daylight, Colin McNamara from Nexus IS, David Meyer from Brocade, also representing Open Daylight. I'm humming. Drew Pletcher from Cisco, Dave Wright from SolidFire, George Simons from GridStore, Howard Marks from Deep Storage, Jesse Saint-Laurent from Simplivity, John Hudson from Brocade, Justin Warren, Storage Field A5 Delegate from Pivot 9, Kelly Harrell from Brocade, Kelly Murphy from GridStore, Michael Dvorkin from Cisco, Michael Letchin from Nexenta, Mike Bouchong from Plexi, Neil Jacques from Open Daylight, Omar Sultan from Cisco, Ramana Janala from Coho Data, who couldn't be here. Thankfully, Aditya Vimpani filled in nicely for him. Rick Martig from Nexenta, Thomas Corneli from Nexenta, Victoria Gray from GridStore, but also the staff of Gestalt IT and Tech Field Day. Claire Chapless, who you all met when you walked in today, Amber Reynolds, Chloe. They did an excellent job making sure that we all went where we were supposed to get. We also like to thank SNEA for helping provide lunch and a place to eat it. And I want to thank all of you for visiting their booths. I also want to thank Mr. Stephen Foskett, who came to me last year and said, hey, remember that SDDC thing that we did? You want to do another one? I said, sure. He's like, good, go with it. And so he kept poking me and prodding me and making sure that I had good people here, both in the podium, on the table, and in the audience. And I would say that it was successful, wouldn't you, boss?
Come on, Tom, it's good.
That answer may cause me to get on a plane early tomorrow.
I think that's as positive as I ever get. No, thank you, Tom. Seriously, Tom is the one who organized this thing, and I really appreciate Tom as well, so thank you. But I think there's one more person that we have to appreciate, and that's the people who came out,
obviously, yes,
who are in the audience. This wouldn't exist without you folks showing up and joining us here. So thank you guys for doing that. I appreciate that as well.
Give yourselves a round of applause. You've earned it.
Hey, me. Yeah.